WPOE, the place to be for all things Ravens. I'm your host, B. Ron, and today I'm going to start with some big news out of Baltimore. John Harbaugh, the head coach of the Ravens, is now the former head coach of the Ravens as he has been fired today. It's a shame to see him go. The Ravens have went out and they have hired a new head coach. Bill Reed has no prior NFL experience, but he has coached in the college ranks. He's coached at Navy, Morgan State, and Maryland, just to name a few places. You know, John Harbaugh did really well over the course of his career in Baltimore. As you can see, there's Charles Davis talking about it, Mark Schlereth, and Trey Wingo, all talking about the big news out of Baltimore today. The new fresh face in Baltimore, if you will. It's going to be a really, really interesting season. He's really good with the X's and O's and team building, but is that going to be enough for Coach Reed to bring this team to prominence, bring this team back where it needs to be, where some people would like it to be, where all Ravens fans really want it to be? Can he get the job done? We'll have to find out. But first, the preseason has to happen first. As the weeks go on, I'll be here to give you all the news, all the action, break down the things that I see fit that are important to this Ravens team. So after week 1 of the preseason, the Ravens managed to get the win 20-17 against the Jacksonville Jaguars. So Robert Griffin, 2 touchdowns in the game. No reason to see a bunch of the starters play a whole lot. Gardner Minshew played a touchdown interception, 243 yards there. And Gus Edwards, Ingram, and Hill all had good games on the ground. Justice Hill, the surprising one, averaging 4 yards a carry on just 6 carries, getting 24 yards. I think he's going to be a really fun player to watch for this Ravens team this year. He's going to be one of the guys that I think comes on and does some really good work and may even take over from Mark Ingram whenever he decides to go. Look at the receivers now. Seth Roberts, Chris Moore, Mark Andrews. Andrews a touchdown. Andrews is another dynamic tight end, another vertical threat who can stretch the field. These new age tight ends who are really good at doing all of that. Kenny Young, Brandon Carr. The secondary is going to be a big part of this Ravens defense. If they can stay healthy, I think that's going to be a huge portion of this team. But the front 7 guys are going to be keys as well to the rest of the season. And I spoke with Coach Reed. He told me that Marshall Yanda had talked to him about mentoring a fellow offensive lineman. And Yanda decided to mentor Lando Brown, take him under his wing, and he's going to help him improve a couple things. They talked about it, and Coach Reed decided that the best course of action would be to work on his run blocking. So Yanda took that and said, "Okay, Coach, I'll work with him on that." And Yanda came back and said, "Okay, I have another question for you. Do we do finesse or power?" And Coach Reed decided, you know what, work with him on his finesse run blocking. I need him to be athletic in my spur offensive scheme. So that's what he did. And as a result, Orlando Brown, word out of camp is that he's getting a lot better at this new style of blocking that Coach Reed is going to implement with the team. He wants to run a spread style of offense. He wants to run a 4-3 cover 3. So it's going to be really fun to see how that changes things here, because most times here in Baltimore we've seen them run a 3-4, but now with Reed coming in, making the change to 4-3, we'll have to see how that affects everything overall. The defense is going to be, the defense has always been a big part of what the Ravens do really well once we get regular season actually started, because the preseason is a totally different animal. People are being evaluated, and there's going to be some cuts coming up soon in the next couple of weeks. We'll have to see what's going to happen as far as Coach Reed making those decisions on who he wants to keep and who he wants to let go. Orlando Brown continues to get better. Again, we're at training camp. Brown continuing to get better, getting a little bit more aware of his surroundings as far as picking up blockers and things like that goes. It's always a good thing to see, especially in the offensive lineman. And it seems like there has been a injury to Ravens player. And yes, Mark Andrews, he's unfortunately going to miss 8 weeks with a fractured elbow, so he'll miss the last 2 weeks of the preseason and the first 6 of the regular season. That's a big blow to this offense when you have a dynamic player like that. In week 2 though, Baltimore was able to get the win over the Packers 31-20. Scored 16 points in that second quarter. That's always a good sign. Aaron Rodgers, 2 touchdowns, always have to stop him. The quarterbacks, Robert Griffin and Lamar Jackson, both had really solid games. A touchdown for each of them, 120 plus yards for each of them as well. You always want to see your guys step up and play very well, and they did that in this game, and it makes it very, very important to have a good backup quarterback. In case something happens to Lamar, you have one in Robert Griffin. So it seems like they'll be in good shape if Lamar does go down, but it is just preseason, so we'll see what happens. Out of Baltimore, as far as players who did not make the team, Otaro Alaka is one of them. Ravens have let him go. They have plenty of depth here at middle linebacker, so they're going to let him go. They're going to let Brandon Traywick go. Going to let DeLance Turner go as well. They have plenty of spots here at the running back position. Plenty of players here who can play running back. It was a very tough, very tough decision, tough calls to make here. As far as cuts for the final 53, that's always one of the toughest things to do as a coach in the NFL, is get your roster down. Mikari is going to not make the cut. RJ Prince also not going to make the cut. My sources said that it was between a few players, and the final one to not make the team for the Ravens this season is the middle linebacker, Chris Board. He's also not going to make the team here as well. So those were the final cuts heading into week 4 of the preseason. As we'll take a quick look at the recap here for the preseason for the Ravens. Ravens ended up going 2-2, winning the first 2 games and losing the last 2 of the preseason. 28-25 to the Eagles and 21-14 to the Redskins. But you know what that means, folks. The regular season is right around the corner, and it's almost time for football to get started up once again, and we will see our Ravens take on the Miami Dolphins in Miami at Hard Rock Stadium. It's going to be a fun one, folks. Be sure to come back and tune in to WPOE, as I will be there in Miami on the call for the very first game of the regular season, and for new head coach Bill Reed as he finishes his first preseason 2-2. How will he do in his first regular season here in Baltimore? Stay tuned. We're going to find out real soon.